What's up, Lego builders? Well, welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for week 1 of building the Battle of Coruscant in Lego. I am so excited for what I have in store for you guys. Now that it's finally here, a lot of the butterflies and the nervousness and kind of the not wanting to start this project has been pushed to the side and replaced with a fire and a hunger to build Coruscant. I know that sounds dramatic, but I just have some really cool things planned for you guys and this mock. This project is by far the most complex and biggest that I have ever undertaken. So this is going to be a very planning heavy update. There's going to be a lot of drawings, mapping things out, showing you guys reference material, images, footage. But all that being said, I will get to some actual building in this update, building my first building design for Coruscant and showing you guys some of the clones I have already and parts that have been collected for this project. I know that's a lot of stuff. It's going to be an action-packed episode. If you're excited to see what I've got cooked up for you guys, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button. And while you're down there, if you haven't already, consider subscribing and tapping that little bell so you'll be notified as soon as the next update starts. All that being said, this is where the fun begins. Where to even start? You can see the table's just strewn with parts, minifigures, and base plates. I'm going to start with the minifigures. So I know this looks small and pitiful right now, but this is the beginning of my main clone force that's going to be on Coruscant. So I'm going to have Coruscant Guard or Shock Troopers and just regular Phase 2 Grunts. Got around 20 of the Phase 2 Grunts and 11 of the Shock Troopers. My goal is to do because I'm decaling these. So my goal is to get 20 decaled at the beginning of the project, and then I'll decal the other 20. My goal is to get 20 of each decaled at the beginning of the mock project, and then do about 20 more of each at the end of the project. Because I'd like to end with around 50 of each kind for a total of 100. I obviously didn't want to do them all at once, and so I figured if I batched them and kind of spread it out before and after the summer, then I could take the summer off. So while it is small, I do have enough for some pretty cool thumbnails, and I figured I'd show you guys what I got. And I do have more that aren't put together yet. They've been decaled and sealed. They just need to be assembled. Over here you can see all the base plates I'm using, just a absolute fat stack. It's even taller than a minifigure. I'm going to get all these spread out and connected together in today's episode. Moving on over here to all the parts. So many different kinds of parts. I don't have a ton of light bluish gray or dark bluish gray, and obviously I don't know what I'm going to need for this mock, but there were quite a few pieces that I just knew I was going to use regardless, and I had a little bit of idea of some of the buildings that were going to go together and some designs for the road. So I was able to start collecting, which was nice. A lot of the basics. You've got slopes, bricks, plates, tile, just basic Coruscant stuff, and then we've got some like fancier pieces over here. Some rounded pieces, and then these bad boys. I got tons of these because there's a really unique style of building on Coruscant that I'm going to get into a little bit later, but I've got a cool design that I think will work for creating the tops of those. So I needed a bunch of these in both colors. I think I've got a bunch of these in light bluish gray somewhere too. I bought a ton of ball and socket joints. I'm really excited to show you guys what those are going to be for. It's going to be really cool. And then up over here, just got some random hoses, and I liked these pieces. I don't really know what I'm going to use them for, but they looked very industrial. But I think that's pretty much it for these parts. What I'm going to do now is show you guys a bunch of images and reference material for Coruscant and give you guys a good idea of like what this section that I'm building looks like in real life and like what the cityscape of Coruscant looks like. Because as I've been studying it, I've noticed there are things that I didn't pick up on before. It's not just skyscrapers jutting up off the ground. There's actually layers that go in Coruscant, as you guys know. So I'm going to talk to you guys more about that and just kind of explain my thought process for this. And then after that, I'm going to throw down some base plates, and then I'll show you kind of like the layout of Coruscant and what it's going to look like on the base plates. All right, let's dive into the schematics and designs of the surface of Coruscant. I, like most of you, was pretty familiar with the general look and vibe of Coruscant. Tall gleaming skyscrapers, massive Senate buildings with thousands of sky taxi shuttles and other ships zipping around between them. What I don't know a lot about, however, is the surface, the roads, buildings, and structures down on the ground. We see a decent amount of the ground floor of the lower levels and underworld of Coruscant, but not a whole lot of the quote-unquote surface of the planet, if that's what I can call it. So I scoured the internet looking for a good frame of reference. As you know, I'm building the financial district of Coruscant, where a large siege took place and is home to the massive Galactic Senate building and Executive Republic building, or whatever it's called. If you want to know more about why I picked this area, I will paste a link to the video explaining that in the top corner. Here's what this area looks like. There is a Senate building at the top of the image with the Republic Executive Building below. What stood out to me was the lack of tall skyscrapers. In this, there are only a few clusters of them, but most of this area is comprised of low, flat buildings that cover basically the entirety of the surface, only broken up by what appear to be large and smaller roads. My mock is not this entire area, mostly just the main road up by the Senate building, but I wanted to show you this overview of the whole area to help you see what I have planned for my mock and what the general shape of the Coruscant city floor looks like up close. Well, closer. Most of the ground area of my mock is going to be covered by those low, wide buildings all connected together, only broken up by roads and gardens and maybe like a common area for eating or something like that. I will build clusters of skyscrapers in or on top of those blocks of buildings, with the far end of my mock being completely taken up by the Senate building. Obviously, it's too big to include in its entirety in this mock, but I would like to at least include the front entrance of it with the surrounding area, which is pretty flat and empty, only having steps and statues on it. So I'll have lots of room for clone troopers and defenses. On the opposite side of the mock, I want to include part of a clone base. It's really just going to be a couple of like barracks and maybe a mess hall, and a small motor pool in front in a walled off area. I've been wanting to do a clone base for a while, just like a classic one, and I thought this mock would be the perfect opportunity to try one out. I'm gonna base the buildings off of the Clone Wars episode The Hidden Enemy, where Rex, Cody, Anakin, and Obi-Wan have to hunt down the deserting clone trooper who sabotages the base. So pretty standard looking buildings. I also want to use the Brick Wiz's awesome Anaxis base for some inspiration. That's pretty much it for what the mock will look like. Next, I'm going to show you where all of this is going to go in my mock and what each of the different sections will include and how big this thing is going to be overall. I'm going to start by laying out the base plates. Can't have a mock without the base, right? I think this will be the best way to show you all where everything will be, as you can look at the actual base plates and be shown how much space each section is roughly going to take up, and to better visualize it all. I also drew up a little blueprint to help me figure it out because this mock is massive. That being said, all of this is subject to change, as I go and build the mock and figure out what is actually possible and affordable. All right, it's finally all laid out, minus the two missing base plates. Unfortunately, I'll have to go pick those up maybe later today. That's not too big of an issue because I'm going to be starting over here. I'm obviously not getting over here by the end of the week. This is going to be like, months from now. So I'm not in any big rush for those. So this is the map of the mock. Sorry for the bad drawing. This is about as good as it gets from me. So I split this up into 3 sections. These aren't base plates just because, I have these smaller 32 by 32 base plates. So I didn't want to draw every base plate and confuse myself and people. So I decided to split it up into the different sections I'm going to be building. So this side right here is going to be the, front side of the mock, you could say. So the clone base is going to be right here, taking up probably about this much space. You're going to have a couple of barracks right here, and then motor pool, vehicles, troops and stuff right here. And then we're going to have a main road, this thing right here, that's just going to cut its way through the entirety of the mock and then end down over there by the steps that go up to the Galactic Senate building. So this is where like the main body of the droids is going to be, slowly working their way this way, overwhelming the clone base, flooding into different areas, taking out, pockets of resistance as they fight their way to where the main body of the Republic forces is going to be. On the other side, we're just going to have like a typical residential district. So I didn't draw it out, but this entire area, except for where the Senate building is going to be and an area I'm going to point out later, and this clone base, are going to be covered in buildings about this tall, probably basically just large rectangles with just indentations, pockets, grooves, trying to create that same look we saw in Coruscant of those large blocks of buildings covering the entire surface. That's going to be what this section is right here, and then you can see I'm going to have probably about 3 skyscrapers just clustered in this back side, on this front side right here, kind of right here, here, and here. And I'll get more into the designs of those skyscrapers in a little bit. But moving on down to the middle of the mock, so I'm gonna copy this section right here next to the clone base. So we're gonna have another residential area with some smaller roads separating it from the clone base and this section up here. Here on this side, I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently. So I want to include like a little kind of like I don't want to call it recreation area because it's not like exercising, but like a kind of like a garden or a public place you can go. Kind of like in that episode with Duchess Satine on Coruscant where her and Obi-Wan meet up, and you know there's all those like fancy blue glowing rocks and just like a common area where people can walk around. I think there's some tables with some restaurants, almost like a garden area. So I would like to include one of those right here in this area, and then next to it I'm going to have a U-shaped building with a kind of like patio area right here where I'll have like tables and restaurants for people. So I would like to include like a little bit of like a just civilian area. Probably, you know, have some like maybe like an old gnarled tree growing out of the ground or something like that. And so this last third of the mock is just going to be absolutely dominated by the Galactic Senate building. It's a big circle, so I'm planning on building like a giant wall, curved wall that's just going to cover this entire backside like that. We'll have the front entrance right here, the door, whatever, and then we're going to have rows of statues on either side of the entrance going out this way with these giant steps that lead down out to the road. So we'll have these two raised flat areas where I'll be mounting like a bunch of clone defenses, maybe have people running away, people getting like evacuated out of this area via gunships. So that should give you guys a pretty good idea of what's going to be happening here. I'm going to start on this side. I'm thinking about maybe building this mock in sections instead of trying to build like, you know, the entire ground floor and then all of the buildings across this whole thing, because I think it'll be a little bit more cost effective to focus on smaller areas. And because Coruscant's like a city, it's so grid-like, I can build sections easier. I wasn't really able to do that with previous mocks because, you know, I couldn't just build a section of Cato Nemoidia, then work on the city, and then work on another section. I needed that whole rock wall done first. Whereas this area, I don't need the Senate building done to be able to start on the clone base or the skyscrapers over here. So that really frees me up to not have to spend so much money each month on this mock. I can kind of work with what I have while I wait for new parts to come in. All the planning's done. I think everything's been explained, everything's been visualized as good as I can now, and it's time to start building. I've been working on a building design in my head for months, so today, now that I have all my pieces in and sorted, I'm going to build it. I've noticed on Coruscant there are tons of flat rectangle-like buildings with rounded tops and tons of variations of this style. You guys are probably also pretty familiar with this style of building, and I found the perfect way to recreate them using the large quarter cylinders you see on the screen. This creates just the right angle, and sticking some smaller wedges on the front sides of those larger quarter wedges, it creates a really cool sloped look on the front, top, and sides of the building. Here's the last update for this video and a look at the completed building. It turned out better than I even pictured it would in my mind. Like, it looks really accurate to what you would see on Coruscant. It definitely gives off some serious Coruscant vibes. The design is pretty simple. You saw how this front part came together, and then I just mirrored this front side on the back side. So I have two separate panels right here. And then I put a bunch of these round cylinders on the top to kind of keep this rounded look going across the roof of the building. Obviously, there are some gaps in there, but I feel like it turned out better than if I just, put like bricks in there or something like that. This did end up using a lot more bricks and tile than I thought. I honestly didn't anticipate using any tiles, and then I kind of got to this section and was like, oh yeah, I have to put something here. I bought a ton of these slopes, and this building style uses so many because you have all of these in these two colors, and then on the back side as well. So I think I might already be running low on those, which is unfortunate because it's week one, but what are you gonna do? Don't pay too much attention to the stuff around this building. I just set it up to kind of create a cool little like Coruscant block or street for a thumbnail. So a lot of good stuff happened this week. Everything's planned. I'm really excited to actually have a physical building that I can hold and move around and modify. That being said, that wraps up this update. It's time to hit the outro. Man, what a week. I'm light with the building fire right now. I had so much fun working on that skyscraper for Coruscant. This just proves once again how much fun this project's going to be for me. Instead of, trying to throw together one giant mountain or one giant rock piece, I can now create tons of little things. And that means every single week there's going to be something new to work on to show you guys. Maybe not every week, but you get the picture. No more endless time lapses of rock work coming together. Next week, the building is going to begin in earnest. I'm going to start putting the frame around the outside of the mock because I don't want you to be able to see the inside and the filler brick and stuff down there. I want it to have a nice black frame, but it's not going to be just your traditional black brick frame. I'm also going to be starting on the large blocks of buildings that are going to be on the actual ground and maybe even mapping out where the road's going to go. All that being said, don't forget to let me know what you thought about this episode down below in the comments, and I will catch you guys next time. But until then, happy building.